Okay, we are at
Mm.
noon, so I will jump in. Thanks for joining us for our June Lunch and Learn today. Happy solstice, everybody. We're glad that you could be here. I'm Julie Brown. I'm the Raptor Migration and Programs Director at the Hawk Migration Association, and I'm joined by Kat Lauer, and she's our Engagement and Communications Coordinator at HMA. And we'd love to hear from you. Let us know where you're joining from in the chat. We always love to hear where people are coming in from. We're very excited to welcome Anna Stunkel today to Lunch and Learn, and we're going to try something a little bit different. We haven't ever featured an artist on Lunch and Learn, and we thought it would be really fun for Anna to share her process of sketching raptors with all of us and give us all a chance to sketch along with her. So I know a lot of you are hawk watchers, regular hawk watchers, and familiar with IDing raptors in the sky in flight. But how often do you get to sketch these birds that you see? Maybe some of you are, and you're artists, and some of you maybe aren't as interested in drawing or painting. So there's no experience necessary to take part. I have my daughter here. Kat has her daughter. We're hoping that everybody will want to give it a try. And before Kat provides an introduction for Anna, I'll give you a little bit of background just about HMA and what we do if you're new to our organization. We're a nonprofit and we provide support to the Raptor Migration Monitoring Network, and that's across the Americas. There's about 200 or so active Hawkwatch sites, and that's throughout North, Central, and South America. And they monitor migration in the spring or fall or both and report those data to our database, hawkcount.org. So we provide resources to the monitoring network, protocols, data sheets, data support, and a number of annual grants, also for Hawkwatch sites and Raptor research. And we also offer a lot of educational resources like Hawk ID materials to the public. We're part of the Raptor Population Index, which produces conservation assessments and population analyses using all the long-term hawk count data. So you can learn more about what we do at our website, hawkmigration.org, or check out our database, hawkcount.org. We are recording as usual, and we're live streaming on Facebook. You can view any of our past Lunch and Learns, or we record them all, so you can view any of those recordings on our website at hawkmigration.org. We are, since today's a little different, we're enabling cameras because we may want to show your work later if you want to, but we're muting everybody to avoid distraction, and we'd love to engage with you. So you can enter your comments or questions into the chat at any time, and Kat or I will give those questions to Anna. And we're going to do that throughout the session today. So not saving everything for the end. We will have a period at the end for questions. But if you have a question or comment about a particular, raptor that we're sketching, you can chime in and we'll try and get those questions to Anna. And lastly, if you don't receive our e-newsletter and you would like to, it's a great way to stay up to date with what we're doing, tours we're offering, and events like this. You can add your email to the chat and we'll make sure we sign you up for that. So I'll turn things over to Kat.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you all here today. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce Anna to you all today. Anna Stunkel is an environmental educator at Baltimore Woods Nature Center in Marcellus, New York. She serves on the board of the Onondaga Audubon. She currently leads a variety of education programs, including for schools, camps, homeschooling, and the general public. These public programs include a nature sketching series. Anna has spent 2 seasons counting at Derby Hill and has also counted at several other Hawkwatch sites across the Americas. She loves sharing the joy of hawkwatching with people of all ages, all experience levels, and she's grateful for the wisdom shared by hawkwatchers in all the places that she has hawkwatched. Anna's also a freelance artist who creates wildlife art and pet portrait commissions. She also teaches online. So we're so lucky and grateful to have her with us today. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Please feel free to begin when you're ready, Anna.
All right. Thank you, Julie and Kat. I'm so glad to have everybody here. I'm zooming in from New Hampshire today, and it's a lovely day here. I am going to turn my screen around so I'm facing the notebook that I'll be using. And I would like everybody to pull up the Cooper's Hawk image, if you can. So that is going to be, I'll show you for a sec here. That is going to be this image here. So I'll give everybody a second to have that ready. And my goal today is to go over how to sketch a variety of different groups of raptors. So oftentimes when I'm teaching people how to draw birds, they don't know terminology like rectrices or marginated primaries and things like that. I'm aware that many of these talks are very scientific in nature, and many of you lead Hawkwatches and manage Hawkwatches. So some of you might know some of those more scientific terms, but I will be explaining them throughout because I know this is going to be on YouTube and a variety of people might be watching, including younger kids. So what I
Anna,
would
if I can jump in for a second, is there a way we can change our settings so that your paper is front and center instead of a little icon?
Oh
Um,
yeah. You actually, I think that either you or I might be able to spotlight it. Let me see
okay,
if I
let me
can
try
do
that.
that.
Okay, yeah, I think I've done it. Does that look good, Kat?
Yeah, there should be like a thing in the settings that says spotlight. Did you find
Okay.
that?
Yep, that's much better. Now
Perfect.
everything's front and center. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. So what we're going to do here is I'm basically going to sketch like the axis of the body and the wings to begin. And one thing that I like to do is actually measure with your pencil from the end of the body or the end of the head to the end of the tail. So, like when I'm doing that here, I take my pencil and the tip of the pencil is where the measurement begins. And then I go to like my thumb here, and that's where the end of the bill is. So if everyone can see that, then I go back to my paper and I make a little mark for the end of the tail. And then this is the spot where my thumb was for the end of the head or the bill. And then you can have another mark. So that's just a good way to get the proportions right. If you're drawing a bird in the field, it's a little bit trickier. But the other thing you can do is guesstimate, like how many heads long is that body? Try and get the proportions between the body, head, and wings about right. It takes quite a bit of practice. And a thing about drawing is that the process is all about learning, and sometimes people focus a lot on the end result and get a little hung up on that, especially as adults, you know. But try to really have fun with it. So the next thing you can do is start sketching in like the basic proportions and look at the angle of that body. And then think about like how far back are the wings, the leading edge of the wings. Um, so this head, you can do like a little circle for the head and then an oval for the body. And you can use that measuring trick to look at the length and width of each part of the bird as well. Then we have the tail. And the tail shape, of course, is going to change depending on how that bird is moving. So this bird is kind of beginning a soar. The tail is not fully fanned in the photo, but it's a little bit fanned. And I'm just going to ask Kat or Julie, can you see that pretty well on the screen?
Yeah, it looks good.
Perfect. So then you're going to do the same kind of thing with those wings. You can erase some of these guidelines on the end. Another thing is I like to draw it pretty nice and big so that it fills the paper as much as you can. And also sketch really lightly with your pencil. I like to have my pencil pretty sharp when I'm doing outlines like this with just a number 2 pencil. It's helpful to have a nice eraser on your pencil, or you can use one of these larger erasers. So then for the wings, you can measure from like this point to the wing tip on your image and then make a little mark at the end. And do that for both of the wings. You can check on the width and the distance from the end of that head. So see, I made these 3 main measurements, and then I'm just going to do a basic geometric shape. Because really what you want to do is make sure that you get that shape on the page. It fits on the page nicely. You don't want to start drawing a whole bunch of details on that head and then find out that you ran out of space on your paper. That wouldn't be good. So very basic shapes. We're going to refine it a little bit later on as well. You guys might be able to hear some birds in the background. I have a pine warbler behind me. And the same thing with the second wing. So then, I was talking about drawing the main groups of raptors. We have the Accipiter and Astur species, the buteos, falcons, and then other things like vultures, eagles, harriers. But accipiters, buteos, and falcons are some of the main groups I'm going to focus on today because there's a variety of species in them. And when we're looking at accipiters, as many of you may know, they tend to have a pretty long tail, the goshawks, Cooper's hawks, and sharp-shinned hawks. And they have short, rounded wings for maneuvering through the forest. So those are some things to keep in mind when you're drawing those overall shapes. So the next thing you're going to do, if you look really closely at your image, you'll see that on each wing you have the underwing coverts. So these are going to be some smaller feathers that are kind of in a group here. And then you have these longer feathers that come off in this direction. So those are going to be the primaries and the secondaries. So here we have the primaries. And then the secondaries. So I like to just map out where those main feather groups are. Most birds are going to have 10 primary feathers. So you can count them and kind of measure in, and you'll see where the shape changes once you get to this point in the wing. Often there's like a little bit of an indent there. And the shape of the wing at the end also is going to depend on the number of emarginated primaries that you have. So emarginated primaries are feathers that have like a little notch in them on the end like this. So it looks, when you see a feather that looks like that, it's almost like a finger at the end of that wing. So those are going to be just the ones at the very outer edge. And then often there's like a little bit of an indent here when you get to the rest of those primaries. Just a couple things to keep in mind. Another thing is you have these tail feathers, and you're going to have typically 6 on each side of that tail. So if you put a line down the center, then you can say, okay, there's 6 on one side and 6 on the other side. And I may draw a little bit of a lopsided bird because, we've only got an hour. So I think I'm just going to focus on one wing and like half of the bird here overall. So with this accipiter, I'm going to add some more details, and then we'll also talk about some of these other species as well. So this is a juvenile Cooper's hawk. And what you can do if you're able to is zoom in a little bit on your image. If you can't do that, you can just follow along with what I'm doing. Gonna zoom in on mine a little bit. So then we have the eye here. So you can start adding some of these details. We have the eye and we have the bill that's on the end. And I'm going to be focusing on hawks in flight today because as a hawk watcher or a raptor researcher, you know, it's really helpful to get those shapes in mind, and drawing them, the action of drawing them will actually really help you learn your ID if you're trying to learn ID. And this is a part where it's nice to have a pretty sharp pencil. So you can add little details like the pupil of the eye. So it's helpful to have a little glint in the eye, like a little white spot. And then raptors have like this sort of eyebrow that makes them look a little bit fierce. I'm not going to be doing a ton of detail today, but you can look at where are the areas that are in shadow, where is the light hitting, and what are the markings on this bird. So like juvenile Cooper's hawks, one of their field marks is that they are going to have streaking on the underside and underneath the throat. So you can shade in the side of the face there and add some thinner streaks underneath the throat. And then when we get to that wing, this is where you have the underwing coverts. We have sort of rows of streaks here. And these are going to be much smaller feathers than the primaries and the secondaries, right? These are the underwing coverts. And many of you probably know about the Sibley Guide to Birds. In the front of the Sibley Guide, there's a lot of really nice drawings that show the main feather groups for different kinds of birds. And there's a section on raptors that's really nice. I'm pretty sure he has that in the second edition too. I've got my old beat up first edition that I've had for a while. And this is also where you're going to look at other markings you may notice. Like if you were drawing a buteo, you would add a patagial mark here. That's a very obvious field mark that you can often see from quite a distance. But the cool thing about drawing is it's a lot like hawk watching in that you start general. You want to really focus on the general shape and proportions. And then if you get the general shape here, then you can focus on details. Because those of you who hawk watch know that sometimes you may have to ID a bird that's like 5 miles away and you're not going to see all these field marks. But the important part is getting that general shape. So then the next thing, this wing is quite a bit in shadow. So if you were really trying to do a detailed drawing, you could kind of hold your pencil on its side to shade in the underside of that wing a little bit. And I'm not using very much pressure here. And then you can do some erasing along the edge and some texture where it kind of looks like feather edges. I find it helpful to keep a soft brush like this to get the eraser crumbs off so you don't smudge things. And then once we get to this part of the wing, what you can do is say, okay, we've got 10 primaries. So a helpful thing to do is take your pencil and mark out the distances between these before you actually draw them so you don't do a weird number. So we've got 1, 2, Just about like that. And you don't always see every single one because sometimes they're overlapping or feathers growing in. But then something that I'll often do is erase the very edge of this so that there's a kind of like a ghost outline. You can still see it, but it's not going to show through. So then I start sketching in those individual feathers and lining them up with the lines that I put here. So you think about the shape, the ends of each feather here. And sort of the spaces in between. So spaces in between thing as an artist, that's called a negative space there. And then as you go down the wing, you're following that ghost outline you have here so that some of these feathers get a little shorter. And then we get to the secondaries. And you're not going to necessarily see all of those because some of them are going to overlap over the top of the back. A lot of times birds have like 12 to 14 of them. So you can do the same thing or you put in some lines. I only naturally fit like 10 there, and you can look at your photo and see how many you see. And that's pretty close. Because there's also going to be some over the top of the back. And secondaries have a less pointed shape usually. They have like a bit more of a rounded or blunt shape. And then what you can do is fill in some of the barring here. So like the ends of those feathers are going to be darker. And I usually do this like in rows going down. And if you look at it, you've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. And they might not line up perfectly on every feather, there's a little irregularity. When you're starting out, you don't want to worry too much about getting everything exactly perfect. I know that can be tricky as somebody who's a perfectionist. And I'm sure that many of you watching who are scientists might be like that as well. So I started out, a lot of my background is as a hawk watcher. I hawk watched for 9 seasons at various spots throughout the US. And then I decided I really enjoy teaching people, so I switched over to environmental education. But I'm super lucky in that I moved very close to Derby Hill Bird Observatory, which is one of the places where I used to hawk watch. So I get to go there and help out during the spring, which is really fun. And then you can also look at things and say, oh, maybe this needs to come out a little bit more. I made some of these feathers a little bit short. One trick that artists will do is they actually take a piece of clear, like projector paper and a red pen and outline the photo and then put it over your drawing. That's what my studio art teacher used to do. And then you'll see where you really need to correct some of the shapes. It's a good exercise. And then this is kind of in shadow too. So if you wanted to add that, you can kind of go on the side of your pencil or have it be a little bit less sharp and shade in the underside of that wing. I'm not shading it in quite as much as I might if I was trying to get it super accurate, but the wing pit you can make a little bit darker just to show some contrast here. So having areas of contrast will really help your hawk to look three-dimensional, because then you have the belly here, which the light's hitting right on the upper part of this belly. And you might need to go back in and darken some of those field marks, like the barring on the wing. So then we'll work on the belly a little bit here, and I'm going to erase this balance line down the middle. And if you need to refine the shape a little bit, you can do that. And if you have a sharper pencil, then you can add in some of the streaking here. So as with many raptor species, Cooper's hawks, the juveniles, the first years are going to have these streaks on their underside. And then when they become adults, they're going to have barring that goes across horizontally. So that's something to keep in mind. And you also can kind of see the feet here. So you can add in some feet. And if anybody has questions in the chat as we go along, feel free to put them in there. Can answer as best I can. You add in that streaking, and then a lot of times it kind of angles towards the middle of the bird on each side here. And you can go on the side of your pencil and shade in that belly on the lower side a little bit here. Another tool that I find helpful for erasing details is, it's called the Tombow Mono Zero Eraser. It's basically like an eraser that acts like a pencil. So if you want to add in some highlights, you can use it. And I can email like some resources, Julie and Kat, to you guys that you can share with the participants also.
That would be great.
Cool. I like to get things off of Blick's Art Supply. You can also use Amazon, but they're a good source for art supplies. Blick. So now when we get to the tail, remember we're going to have 6 feathers on each side pretty much, but this tail is pretty closed up, so you might not see every single feather. If the tail was more fanned out, then it would be a little bit different, right? You'd see each feather very clearly. And you want to think about, too, some of the outer rectrices or the outer tail feathers are going to be shorter than the inner ones. So that, on a Cooper's hawk, is a helpful clue that it's a Cooper's rather than a sharp-shinned. Although, as many of you know, there's a lot of variation with tails. You can't always go by that. But sharp-shins often have like a sharper angle at the more squared off at corners of their tail than Cooper's. And Coopers, you know, they tend to have a longer tail than Sharpshin and their head sticks out a little bit more. So I did 5 feathers there, which is pretty close. There could be some overlap going on. Sometimes when the light's shining through, you can kind of see like feathers overlapping too. You can get this kind of thing going on where 2 feathers overlap and then there's a shadow here. Like that. I'm drawing them larger than they would be, but just so that you can actually see it. And then similar to the wings, you have the bars that go across here, and many birds, they have this thicker bar at the very end of their tail. It goes almost to the end. There's just like a little sliver of lighter part. So for the Cooper's hawk, I'm gonna pause there since it's already 12:30. So that's just one example of half a bird. Did anybody want to ask questions or hold up what you've done so far? I'm not sure if there's anything in the chat.
Nothing
If not,
yet.
okay. We can
There's
move
some
on.
people holding up their work, which looks great. I see some of them. If you can, you may need to scroll through some of the participant screens, but they look great.
Ooh, let me see. Oh, I see it now. Very nice. I'm just scrolling for a second. Beautiful work. Oh, I see Dory's on here. Hi, Dory. I know Dory. From Onondaga Audubon. Oh, Janelle, that's very nice. I like how you did the shading as well. Did you use a Q-tip or something to blend? That's another good tip. Nice, a blending stump. Yeah. So using something like a Q-tip or a blending stump can help when you do the first layer. And then you go over it with some of the more detailed things like the streaking. All right, let me see if I can go back to my screen and make it big. Just a second. I just want to make sure I can see everything well. Are you spotlighting my screen, Julie or Kat?
You're still spotlighted, so we can see it.
Okay, because for some reason it's small on mine, but as long as everyone can see, just let me know if you cannot.
Really, it's small on mine also. Can you?
Oh,
Oh,
really?
Yeah. Can
Okay.
we?
She's still spotlighted on my screen. You may have to go up to the 3 little dots and
Maybe redo it.
yeah, I will,
Maybe remove
I,
spotlight and spotlight again.
yeah,
sure.
that's what I would try.
Spotlight for everyone. Is
There.
that better?
That's
Okay.
better.
That's funny. I had to
Okay,
do it. Okay.
awesome. Yeah, it's still small for mine, but if anybody can't see things well, just let me know. So now I'm going to work on a buteo. If you guys want to switch to the red-tailed hawk.
Okay, I'll put that one in the chat.
Perfect. And I'm not going to be doing quite as much detail now. I just want to kind of go over some of the differences between groups of raptors. So if you think about an accipiter, I'll do like almost a stick figure little sketch of an accipiter here again. They have a long, often skinny tail unless they're soaring. Oh, there we go.
I had a quick question here. Julie, are we supposed to be able to see the red tail? Because I just pulled up on another screen a Cooper's hawk earlier. But are we supposed to all be viewing the same hawk here?
We emailed it in advance, Brian, so
Got it.
everybody, I asked people to print it out or have it on another device. So those of you who may not have, yeah, there it is there. I've put it
Okay.
in the chat, so you can you should be able to copy it or just keep it in the chat in your view
I don't
at
see
this
it in the
point.
chat.
Oh, you don't?
No. Where would it be? Would it be the last thing, last post?
If you
Oh,
scroll down, it's the
oh, I
very
got it
last
now.
one.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So this is what like an accipiter might look like. They have like kind of a skinnier, longer tail. But if you look at a buteo, like this red tail, their shape is quite different. With a red tail, they have a pretty bulky body, right? So I'll draw this kind of small just to show you the comparison. And you know, different buteos are going to be different in shape. I really find the Hawks in Flight book to be very helpful because it has some good descriptions on telling different buteos apart. Like, for example, the candle flame shape of the broad-winged hawk wings. Some of you guys might have heard of that. They have sort of more pointed wings compared to a red tail. Just trying to see if that's in the screen. Yeah. So a red tail, the fingers or the emarginated primaries are a little bit more pronounced. And this picture also shows a red tail that's in a glide rather than a soar. So we were looking at that Cooper's hawk while it was soaring, so the wings were kind of extended out more. So that's what they're doing when they're going to be on a thermal, circling up on hot air. But when you have a bird that's in a glide, they bring their wings forward and their shoulders are kind of a little more hunched. And this photo shows that really nicely. And then you have more of an S curve on the back of the wing here, particularly in this case. So if you want to try and show that in your drawing, you've got that S curve going on. And to get the proportions, you can use that measuring trick once again. So when they're in a glide, their tail is going to be in more. But if they were soaring, the tail would be fanned out quite a lot. So the buteos are really good at soaring long distances. And this is an example where I'm just going to do a really quick sketch of that overall shape. If you saw this bird from a pretty good distance, you might still be able to see those patagial marks. So these are the darker marks on the leading edge of the wing. That's a good identifying feature of red-tailed hawks. And then red tails have a lot of plumage variation, many of you might know. You have the Harlan's hawks, where they might not even have a tail that's red. I was watching, I noticed my friend Bryce did a presentation. He has a really cool project called the Red-Tailed Hawk Project, and you should check out that website if you haven't, because it talks a lot about red tail variation. A really cool species. And then another thing about red tails is that they have this belly band around the middle here. So they're streaking here, but then there's a wider space on the undertail coverts area. And then there's, some people call this like a medallion where it's lighter up here as well. And a darker head. So this is just a very quick sketch, a little bit different than what I did before.
Something just
But
happened with
doing,
the image.
Yeah, we lost your video, Anna.
oh, just a sec.
Let me remove the spotlight and try it again.
Oh, is it back?
Yep, all set.
Perfect. Sorry about that. All clear? The other thing you can take note of is that when you have an older bird, whether it's a variety of different groups of birds, but buteos in particular, it's going to have a dark trailing edge to the wing if it's an adult. If it's a juvenile, the trailing edge is going to be a lot lighter. So I'm not even doing individual feathers right now. I'm kind of just showing those very overall field marks that you can see. And in the glide, the tail is going to be not fan, but in a little bit rectangular in shape here. So this is the kind of sketch that I might do if I saw something and I wasn't too sure what it was, and I just wanted to get in the very basic field marks that I'm seeing here. So sketching can be really helpful if you see a bird that you're unsure of. Because sometimes you're not able to get a photo, but you have it fresh in your mind, the things that you're observing. So you can get it down on paper, and that'll help you later on. You could include it in your eBird list, a photo of an image of the sketch, potentially, if you're using eBird. So then, what's going on here? Is my video going in and out?
We just lost it again.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hang on. I'm still spotlighted, right?
I just removed it and added it again, so we can see the top of your paper, but not the bird. There you go.
Because I was just trying to figure something out. It seems like what happens is the screen is going to sleep for some reason, so I'll keep tapping it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The next thing is I'm going to look at the falcon image. So that's going to be the peregrine falcon here.
Okay, I'll pull that one up.
This guy. So when you look at the falcon, you'll notice that the wings are very pointed on the end. These guys are super fast flyers. Some of you may know, I think the fastest speed clocked of a peregrine is 242 miles per hour. So fastest land animal. Oh, doing that again. I'm so sorry. I've never had Zoom go to sleep on me like that, but I'll just keep tapping the screen. So if I was to draw a falcon here, you're going to do a very different kind of wing shape. It's almost like triangular. So there is a little bit of that wrist here on the bird, but then very pointed end of that wing and relatively uniform along the back end of it. And when you're drawing different kinds of falcons, again, it's helpful to look at hawks in flight. They have some cool descriptions in there. There's something in there that talks about how a kestrel is like a bicycle and a merlin is like a motorcycle, which I think is a great description. Merlins, those of you who hawkwatch know that when someone calls out merlin, they'll go merlin, and then usually it's gone by the time they've called it out. So they have a little bit of a more like robust shape, whereas the kestrel is going to have a slimmer shape. And peregrines like this guy here also have that robust shape. It's very thick at the base of the wing and kind of a beefy looking body here. And then the other images that I included, we're not going to get to them in great detail today, but vultures and eagles, some things you want to keep in mind with them, and feel free to practice with those images, is that turkey vultures are going to have quite a dihedral shape to the wings. So if this is a head-on view, you would have the wings kind of up like this in a V shape. And they can soar really long distances having their wings up in a shape like that. Whereas an eagle, particularly bald eagles, hold their wings really flat. a little bit more like this. So looking at those head-on views, I think in the Sibley guide, he has some good silhouettes of those as well. Those are some things to keep in mind. A golden eagle is going to be kind of in between these two. They hold their wings up in a bit of a dihedral. And if you look at the images of the vulture and the bald eagle that I have in the folder there, the bald eagle has wings that are almost like straight out in a plank. So like this could be the body. And then you have these wings just being held straight out like that. And with the bald eagle, it's going to be a larger head than the golden as well. The vulture picture that I attached is a little bit of a trickier angle, so that's an interesting one to practice. But if you look at it here, there's a wing that's kind of going away, and you can see that it's like a sharp angle here. It's going up in that dihedral shape. All right, I know that I was asked to end at about 12:45. I guess a couple final things that I'll mention. So we talked about some of the wing feather groups here. If you have a bird that has a wing that's folded, it's going to be different. So let's say you had a perched raptor. You have the wing, and then the primaries come off the end like that. So you have primaries, and then the secondaries are kind of more like up here. And then this part up here is the coverts. So secondaries and primaries are like that projection on the end here. And then these smaller feathers are the coverts. So practicing a folded wing versus an extended wing is going to be quite different. All right, at this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to questions. See if I can flip the screen around here.
Great.
Thank you so much, Anna. This has been so wonderful. I managed to sketch 2.5 birds as we were going along, but it seems like everyone's been busy sketching, so there's no questions right now. If anybody has a question for Anna, please feel free to put it into the chat. And I also want to say, if you feel so inclined to share your picture, whether I know some people have held them up, which has been awesome, but also if you would love to email them to me and I could share them on social media later or share them with Anna as well. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and I would love to see it. And it doesn't have any skill level is totally great. I would love to see.
Yeah. And keep in mind, again, I know I said at the beginning, but it's all about the process and helping yourself to learn. So there's really a lot of connection between illustration, drawing, sketching, and painting and science. And I think sometimes people don't realize that quite so much, but there's actually a whole group called the Guild of Natural Science Illustrators. Many of the people in that group are like medical illustrators, but some of them also do things like interpretive signage, where they're drawing a variety of different living things and sharing it with others. But it's just such a useful tool. If any of you guys check out my website, you'll see the work is a little bit more detailed than what we're doing today, just because of the time and everything. But you want to start general, start basic, and then gradually work on adding more detail. And the detail can certainly be a lot of fun once you get into it too. But many good resources out there, and I will share them with Kat and Julie so that you guys can see too.
Awesome. Yeah, I especially loved how you went through the anatomy as you went and the different parts of the wing. I think that's really important for being able to kind of create that shape and all the detail that you are creating on your pictures. So yeah, thank you. Um,
Yeah, and the cool thing is like you're learning as you go, you're learning the names of those different things like primaries, secondaries, rectrices, undertail coverts, upper tail coverts, all that.
Michelle has a comment. She says, I really appreciate how she broke down the wing, creating it in general, adding detail, and then erasing the general, which I totally agree was super helpful.
Yeah, so I do a lot of colored pencil work, and that erasing trick is really helpful for when you're using colored pencils because you don't want to show like the pencil, the number two pencil lines or graphite pencil through the colored pencil. You want to erase it so there's just a ghost outline, and then you go over it with colored pencil. But that way you can still see that overall geometric shape when you add the colored pencil.
Yeah. Super great. And then it looks like Julia Jackson has shared your website with annastunkelart.squarespace.com and said gorgeous work. So yeah, people should definitely check that out. I'm gonna hand it over to you, I think, Julie, uh,
Okay,
if no one
great.
else has any questions.
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
Um, Anna, this is just spectacular work. I struggle to learn my hawks, and it took a very long time as a hawk watcher. And I think I could have cut that time in half if I would have tried to draw them like you're describing here. It just forces you to think about what you're seeing. It's one thing to say, "Oh yeah, I saw this bird," but to try to draw it, I think that is I don't understand what it is, but there's this connection between your hand and the brain and that hawk that I just think would have saved me so much time. So, and I am not an artist by any means, but I'm pretty proud of myself, I got to say, right? I'm hitting the marks that you were talking about. And I think, if there's one thing that I would tell anyone who's trying to learn hawks is watch this lunch and learn and try to draw them. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Uh, we
Thank
have
Absolutely.
you.
We have one question came in from Janelle Lopez who says, I am a master's student with a focus on red-shouldered hawk breeding success and the survival rate of juveniles slash first years. I love art, especially doing realistic art of avian species. How do I get more involved with wildlife illustration and prepare some of my work with my artwork? So how does it coincide with her kind of science, I guess?
I would say if you're really into illustration, that group that I mentioned, the Guild of Natural Science Illustrators, is really helpful to become a member of them. And also my friend who I mentioned, Bryce, I'm not sure in his presentation if he talked much about his art, but he does a lot of artwork that he puts like in his own research papers and shares it with other people. So if you make connections with other researchers and stuff, you can talk to them about like, do they need any artwork in their papers? Because that can be really fun to do. And I've done some of that as well, like comparing broad-winged hawk tail patterns, for example, and different morphs like dark morphs and light morphs. I actually just did some illustrations for Chris Briggs involving that as well. So there's so much you can do combining art and science. It's really neat.
Awesome, thank you.
That's great. Yeah, that's a topic that I think about a lot too, Anna. I went to art school for a few years before I switched over to studying wildlife ecology, and I always kind of felt that challenge of art versus science, and I was so drawn to both and wasn't sure what to pursue. And yeah, I'm definitely a better biologist because of being an artist and vice versa. So it makes you more observant, I think, as a biologist and a naturalist, and they're very well paired. And I'm excited that my daughter wants to maybe get into some natural science illustration too. She's got the art and the science genes, I think, so that makes me happy. we're so happy that we had a chance to have you coach us through this. And I know it wasn't a lot of time to work with, but it was great to just get the overall shapes and watch you through your process. And hopefully people are inspired to do more. Take a field notebook out with you to the Hawkwatch or your backyard and do some sketching. And like you said, Anna, it's a great way to learn and practice our ID. So it was just awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, so definitely try out using reference photos. When it comes to hawks, they're moving very often. But if you do find one that's perched, maybe like a turkey vulture with their wings out, you can try that because they're sitting still. So take advantage of that for sure. But a combination of reference photos and trying out field sketching can be really helpful for learning. Another resource I'll share with everyone is John Muir Laws is a really amazing teacher and nature artist, and he will sketch and paint like everything you can possibly imagine, from moss to large mammals and everything in between. And he has all these free videos you can watch, which is really cool.
Oh, great. What is his name again?
John Muir Laws.
Okay.
My Zoom is being super weird, so I can't go into the chat right now, but I will send that to you so you can send it to everybody.
Okay, we'll share it. Okay. Thanks so much. Wow. This is so inspiring. I want to go draw some more.
Yeah, and the other thing is if anyone's interested in doing lessons online, I have some students who have been doing these lessons for like 4 or 5 years every single week, but you don't have to commit to that. If anyone is interested in just doing like a one-off lesson for like an hour, I do online sketching lessons. And I have info about that on my website. That's something that I started during COVID, and it's really been a lot of fun. So one of the few good things that came out of COVID.
Yeah, and amazing just that we can do this now through technology.
Yeah.
It's amazing that we can use this to connect and draw together. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, thanks again. And please check out Anna's website for more information. For our next Lunch and Learn in July, it's actually just 2 weeks away. July 8th, we're going to hear from Wayne Quinto, and he's the longtime counter at the Montclair Hawkwatch in New Jersey. So he's going to share his photo essay on the return of nesting peregrines to the Palisades right above the Hudson River. And his photos are absolutely amazing. He's been following this nesting pair for, I think, 5 years or so. And they were extirpated for a long time after DDT use. So this is just a really cool story and would be a chance to see some phenomenal photography. And you can register for that on our Facebook page or on our website now. And that will be again on July 8th. So I think that's about it. If you are not an HMA member and you'd like to support the programming and programs like this, we'd love you to join our kettle. You can check out how to become a member at hawkmigration.org. So thanks again, Anna, and thanks everybody for joining today, and we hope to see you soon.